Farm experimentation. We're talking about what things you've always wanted to do and you just didn't. What are you going to try and maybe you're a little bit afraid of? What did you try and it actually backfired? We're talking about farmer experimentation with some of the most experimenting guys I know.
You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? And the best part, you're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to the Granary. Hey guys.
All right, farm experimentation. I loved it the first time I came to your farm 3.5 years ago. You said, I've never had a failure. I've just had experiments that didn't quite work out. I love the way you think about stuff. You are more willing to mess it up than most anybody I know, and I applaud that.
I mean, it's not a failure unless you don't learn anything from it.
It's only a failure if you don't learn anything from it.
No, right. That's right.
So tell me about the experimentation you're going to try this year or something you are afraid to try. I don't think you're afraid to try anything.
Afraid to try anything. I mean, God hates coward.
Yeah. Experimentation you've always wanted to try.
Let's say one. I want to know one that Stephanie's afraid to try.
I think it's important for everybody to know, to the viewer. First off, nobody knew what we were going to talk about, but I might have given Stephanie just a little bit of
she got a heads up.
And also, Stephanie is not just an employee of AgroLiquid. She and her husband farm about 4,000 acres in central Michigan, so she's got real street cred when it comes to farming. What's something you've always wanted to try and you're afraid to? Even you.
Oh.
Yes.
I want to pick hers.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything that I am afraid to try. This past year, I did try something that was a little bit scary. I put $1,000 budget on a soybean crop, which included fertility, just fertility.
Yeah, so the person that's listening to this like, hey man, I'm in a cranberry bog out here in Massachusetts. What's she talking about? You mean you budgeted $1,000 of spend on inputs per acre on a soybean crop?
Yep, for fertility, liming, anything nutrition related.
Knock, knock. Did you want to tell her that experiment's going to be a problem? Because Mr. Garrett spent $900 on a soybean crop per acre, and his dad said, how the hell did you get $900 an acre of soybean production?
He did. That encompassed everything, though. That was land, machinery, everything on normal production beans. She's just talking on inputs.
Just nutrition.
Yeah. She was, and I'd like to try anhydrous beans again. I sometimes wonder about the extra nitrogen early in the season for the beans. And so I applaud what she's doing because I can't make beans profitable. She's trying to do that.
Is there a chance that she might be overspending by a few $100s per acre?
Oh, absolutely there is. But we don't know if we don't try. And then she's going to learn something from it. And then you have to see what you can scale up.
How are you doing this? I mean, I'm almost thinking, are you just going out there and just flinging dollar bills around? Because it's hard for me to fathom getting that much money in fertility per acre.
We didn't spend the $1,000. We tried, but we could not get there to do it.
How you not get there? Like, how did you not get there? Like, what?
Well, we ran out of time, first of all, but we did big lime applications and stuff up front. So that took a big chunk of the cash, a bunch of Pell lime. But yeah, we didn't get quite to $1,000. But what we learned is the acres that we spent nothing on yielded exactly the same as what we spent hundreds of dollars on.
That's been my experience.
So I think what we just learned is you should really not try and overspend on soybean production because it's not going to pay back.
Well, I think Mother Nature plays more of a part on soybean production than anything else. And, we had beautiful beans, super tall.
All right. Tell me something now. We're finally we're always honest here at XtremeAg. Something you did that you don't call it a failure, but it clearly did not work out. Give me one. An experiment that absolutely just fizzled like a bad dud at fireworks night.
I'm going to have to think on it a little bit. Like, I really don't. I don't really
This is something I'd like to do again. In 2017 was our first year of irrigated soybeans. And we put on 100 pounds of anhydrous and we side dressed 100 pounds of actual potash. And those beans came up, they were beautiful and they were green. And in August, there was 110,000 population. That's what we planted. So there's 105,000 plants out there. And we had on average 158 pods per plant. And I thought, holy cow, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And then on August 24th, we got a 6-inch rain. And on August 27th, we got a 4-inch rain. And they laid down, and when they stood back up, they had 90 pods and they made 88. And I never tried to do that again with the fertility because I thought this is before PGRs and this is before things like that. This is before calcium, you know what I mean? And when I was very green, and now with what we know now with the hormones and the PGRs and the calcium, I should try to do that again. But that was a failure because we lost half of them. We lost half the pods and they were there and they were filling. That was the biggest disappointment of my farming career.
Or it could have been
The
hybrid.
biggest disappointment. Whoa. Wait, we're going to get to that later. The biggest disappointment was that you only got 88 bushel soybeans. Oh,
The biggest disappointment
You're like
is
a smart kid in class who like says, "Oh, I fluked my test." You got a 94 or something.
Yeah.
Nobody likes you.
I'm telling you what was there and what we lost. It was incredibly disappointing. 88 bushel soybeans are great, but that's not what we had. We had more than that.
You finally got one. Something it was a dismal dud.
I can tell you.
What do you want
I can tell you this year I decided to broadcast all my wheat.
Broadcast instead of drilling?
Broadcast my wheat instead of drilling. Johnny gets away with it. Temple gets away with it. Like they have great wheat crops. Both of them grow more wheat than me. Negative Ghost Rider. And that thing's terrible.
Why? What happened?
Like it didn't come up. Like you mess around and get the wrong
Conditions?
rain. You mess around and get the wrong rain or don't get a rain. And then we're always planting behind that corn stubble. You know, we harvest the corn crop and it's a lot of fodder there. And then we throw that out and you work it a couple of times and it just lays on top. We need to do like match and burn it off, you know, that's just a big negative. So, but we got a couple where we got one rain, it was fine. But where you got like a tenth and a tenth and a tenth and that wheat that was laying on top, I've never in my life, I don't know anybody, I challenge anybody to call me. Will, you put my number on the bottom of the screen. Call me if you've ever replanted wheat. I replanted 500 acres. Like how you do that?
I think if you
I can tell you something. I'm going to say this. If I
don't know, man.
If I can't afford to drill wheat, I'll just quit growing wheat. How about that?
There you go.
I mean, it's real simple. And people make really good wheat broadcasting, but I just
that doesn't seem like that big of a screw up. So you had to replant 500 acres.
Replant 500 acres.
Well, I mean, the truth is, it's hard to screw up wheat. It's kind of like,
how many people's ever replanted wheat?
If it's hard to screw up wheat, then you're not doing very good to begin.
Anybody ever replanted wheat? I have.
What do you want to try? What do you want to try that you're going to say, we're going to do this? You know what? I've been toying this around. I'm going to do it. What are you going to do?
So I have an idea to bring Chad in. We want to get a second ear to stay on a corn plant.
We talked about this at your farm once before.
I'd like to do that. We were.
So we've tried a lot from fertility. We've tried a lot from, different growth hormones, and you'll get an ear until midsummer and then it just disappears. So what can we do from the fertility side, from the water side to get that second ear to stay around?
We've evolved a long way. When I was young, they told me that we didn't want a second ear because it deprived the other ear of the energy it needed to put on a good ear, and that was a stupid idea to try and have a second ear.
Sounds like something a seed corn salesman would tell you.
Probably so.
I believe that I believe that we can't do that. I believe that we aren't keeping the second ear because we have the same experience. You have the plant and the root is the main focus of the plant. Then you put the ear on and the root becomes the second focus. Then you put the second ear on, the root becomes the third focus. Then we lose the root before we should, and then we lose the second ear because it aborts. We need to keep the root active in the soil longer to keep feeding that second ear, and we haven't accomplished that yet.
But ask him about the phone call that I've given him multiple times. Like every time me or him think we have a theory, then either one of us can walk out on our field in our own fields and prove each other's theory and our own wrong.
All right, so
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like you can prove your own theory. Like this is what's going on. Yeah.
what do you think? You're one of your things that we like to talk about, and your buddy Matt Miles quotes it commonly. Says every company in America, every company in the world that's succeeding devotes a certain amount of their budget to R&D. And if you're a farmer, you should take a few acres, a certain percentage of your farm, and you should be doing some research and development every year. That's one of your big things. You get a lot of accolades from me too on that. What's the experiment going to be this year? What's the R&D department look like this year?
Oh, I don't even know yet. I mean, it's definitely going to be that. It's always going to be that. What Stephanie's talking about. I mean, that's going to happen. I mean, we're going to go to the...
You're going to overspend on soybeans and not possibly...
No, not this year. I promise you better not be there
this
this year.
Stephanie and spend more than you could ever make back.
If you want to talk about something, we'll talk about underspending on soybeans and still trying to make a profit. So that's what we can talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just don't look favorable for them this year. But, every year we're going to have that particular study. We're going to have that's trying to do that and try to hold that second ear. There's people that's figured it out, but it's going to take a different mindset than what I got, I promise you. And I don't think it's fertility. Like, I don't think it's fertility at all.
I don't think so either.
on the second year. I don't think it's fertility. I think it's soil-borne diseases that bother that root, and we've got to keep the root alive. I want to put cover crops out at V3, V4 in my corn.
We covered this in the podcast, which is awesome you're bringing it up right now, because there's a whole bunch of people that A, think that's crazy, B, it's the old thing, it'll never work here. You're going to have someone that literally farms across the road from you and said, well, that'll work for Kelly Garrett, but it'll never work here. Because farmers love to say that.
Like he wants to plant something, and then that's the same time that we're going to spray atrazine and everything else in there to try to keep the ground clean.
We've taken atrazine out. It'll have to be after the post-chem. You're right. Yeah. I agree. It'll have to be after the post-chem. And, but we've taken all atrazine out now because of what we're trying to do with the cover crops and move things around to graze the cattle. We're not trying to rotate corn and beans anymore. We're trying to rotate corn and cattle, and the atrazine is a problem for the cattle.
Yep, because it's just too clean. That's a good problem, man.
There you go.
So you're going to put in this stuff, and again, you'll have a whole bunch of people, neighbors, etc. That won't work. This won't work. It wouldn't work here. Farmers love to do that. Literally across the road from you, and you're convinced it's going to be pulled off. This is a pretty big experiment. What's the downside?
If it competes with the corn.
The downside is you put in cover crops too early. The corn's still growing. It competes with the corn, or deprives your corn of moisture and or nutrients.
I don't believe it. As long as it doesn't compete with the corn, I don't believe it will deprive it of moisture, because I now believe after working with TJ and the intensive rotational grazing we had last year, when you have multi-species in the field, that collaboration of species of plants, there's actually more moisture. Gabe Brown talks about that. Right. You and I have talked about that, and I believe that that's true. They talk about putting that cover crop out as early as V2. I don't think we can put it out then because of the post-chem. We're going to need to get it later. The other people, TJ, my cover crop friend that's doing this, he's actually drilling them in with a side dress bar as he's split applying his nitrogen. I can't do that in my hills, so we're going to try to broadcast it. Hopefully it gets rained and it comes up better than your wheat. Yeah. But that's the other downside too. What if it doesn't come up?
So you're going to broadcast it with an airplane or the drone or something like that.
Then the seed will hang on those corn leaves for about a week and a half, or get eaten by birds.
At that early, it's not going to hang on them.
No, the corn's too small.
Little.
Corn's going to be too little. Yeah.
What's going to go wrong with this experiment?
If he gets a dry year.
Hey, wait. Judge it.
If he gets a dry year, he can hurt both his cover crop establishment and his corn crop.
Be like the person that's at the local diner that says, that'll never work out. He's just being foolish. Be that person.
But I don't think that, I think it could work. So I
think he'll be fine, but I'm scared he'll go too early.
Yeah.
I think you need to go right as the corn's lapping. And then that way, any rain you get will bring it out.
Like we typically have decent rains in June. Then you don't have very many rains in July, August, and September. I need to go early enough that I'm still going to get a rain.
I already know, but the viewer of the Granary show does not know what's the cover crop mix going to be, because that's kind of a critical component to its success.
It's going to be some brassicas, think cabbages, things like that.
And there is going to be some rye, some cereal rye in there.
No, cereal rye is a bad word to me.
Yeah, yes, and no ryegrass.
There could be a bit of annual ryegrass, but that's different than cereal.
Cereal rye is the bad stuff.
I won't use cereal.
Yeah, it can be. We've had a lot of disasters.
Yes, we've now learned that if you have fusarium in your soil, fusarium and cereal rye is very hard on our crops.
So the only thing that you see is weather. You see it being too early.
I see his point. I mean, you got to get a rain. But I wanted to I'd rather be late, because remember, like I said, most farmers go home and we're 1,500 to 1,800 GDU in.
Yeah.
And it takes, even where he's at, he's looking at somewhere around 2,300 GDU to finish. So he's still got 1,000 GDU left.
So I think it's important to the person saying, well, why is he even doing this? The motivation, the objective is?
The objective is conservation, weed suppression, moisture retention, and the cattle feed to be there when the corn comes off.
So the person that doesn't have cows that can't turn the cows out there after the corn is harvested is going to say, well, I don't know if I would even make this. It wouldn't make any sense to me. You can still justify it on the grounds
weed suppression, conservation,
moisture
retention,
and obviously erosion control when you've got slopes like you have over there. All right, now you should be motivated, Stephanie. We just talked about what he's doing. That's getting kind of crazy. He's going to be judged by the neighbors, and here you are. Oh, I work for AgroLiquid. I can't make any big experiments because the neighbors will judge me. Is that really happen?
No, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're not going to judge me any harder than the time I planted beans in December.
Right. Good point.
Good point.
How'd that work out?
That didn't work out very well. If it could have stayed frozen until the 1st of April and then just warmed up one time, maybe it would be okay.
It would have made you do it again.
Yes, it would have made me do it again and then fail. It warmed up in March. They germinated. Some of them tried, they never came up, but they germinated. Then when it refroze, it killed them.
Yeah, so if it works, there's the old thing, there's nothing like a dumbass idea that actually you pull off, because then it kind of reinforces
Makes you bulletproof.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
That was not a bulletproof one.
What do you think more people should try? You are honestly a person that's always out there, and the reason they tune into XtremeAg is they want to hear from you.
I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Too many farmers are too conservative?
When they try, they don't try enough. You try enough.
I've got my theory. I've got my answer. I want to go with you first. You're the farmer.
Go ahead.
I've learned, I want to preface what Chad's about to say, maybe. I have learned so much from Chad, because Chad's got a t-shirt on that you can't see right now. It says send it. Because when Chad tries something, he goes to the extreme. I heard $1,000 an acre on soybeans. That's extreme. Chad goes to the extreme. And so like a normal farmer, to me, they say, well, I'm going to turn my soybean population down a little bit. So I'm going to go from 150 to 140. That is nothing.
Would it be fair to say that Chad might have a little bit of a compulsive personality? Obsessive.
I think we all do. This is what I want you to tell them. I want you to tell them about when you put on the 400 bushel worth of removal. That didn't work, but how much did we learn? I've learned a tremendous amount from that, just from you telling me.
From it not working.
That's the story you need to tell.
I'm waiting.
We don't have that much time.
Yeah, we got this much time. All right, give us the highlights.
I mean, but the point is, so we decided we was going to put out enough fertilizer to make the machine stop spreading in a variable rate situation, right? So that yield goal in the farm we was doing it on, the yield goal was 850 bushel. To make the machine keep spreading, it was 850 bushel. You just keep bumping the number until it all turns green, So we did that. And I mean, literally the machine was putting out, I think, 1,400 pounds of fertilizer an acre. So we did it from like pole to pole, quarter there, pole to pole. Nothing. Didn't see nothing in tissue samples. Didn't see nothing in soil samples. Like, it's man, you know what? Wait till next year. Well, that's about 7-8 years ago. Still can't find it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it really opened my eyes to what we're doing with dry fertilizer, what we're trying to do to our soils, what we're trying to build or not build. And it just makes you think outside the box a little bit on where you're headed. Because, you asked the question earlier about what most farmers need to try. They need to try to get out of their comfort zone just a little bit, just on one crop and then on one field. And then don't try to fix everything at once, because they'll get overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Just start taking some tissue samples.
What should more farmers do?
As bad as me and you talk about that.
You're out there. By the way, we did a past episode of the Cutting Curve podcast about the tissue sample or not the tissue sample. And it was with the AgroLiquid friends and Chad and me. And it was a very colorful episode. Go check it out. What should more farmers do for an experiment?
Well, I think what Chad just said, get out of your comfort zone. And, that's what we're kind of looking to do at home. We're cutting back acres a little bit.
Who's more conservative, you or your husband?
My husband.
So you're the one that's wanting to push it.
Yeah.
But
I think he's kind of getting there, though.
How many years have you been working with this guy?
Almost 30.
So it took 30 years. You finally get him to get a little bit more wide open?
It's these guys. He's start traveling with me more, and they've convinced him.
All right. What should more farmers experiment with? Obviously, the cover crop thing you and I both think is the way of the future. And we hear, all I have to do is say the word cover crop. If I say it and there's an audience of 5 farmers, 4 will say, that won't work here.
I think the first thing farmers should experiment with, more if I had to pick one thing, is variable rate technology on their seed and on their fertility. Every square foot is different in the soil, at least for us.
And you're talking about it's really cost. It's really a cost maximization, because you're unnecessarily spending money in one area and not putting enough in another area.
Absolutely, huge cost savings on VRT.
You want to hear mine when I said I've got my answer? What more about most farmers' experimentation? And it's not just about farmers, it's about everybody. Most people don't like change, no matter what industry they work in. And so if someone brings up this thing we should try, they're convinced it won't work, because by God, that's not how we've ever done it. Well, all right, I'll try it. And if that's the response, well, all right, I'll try it, then say don't. Because you're going to self-sabotage. You're not committed to the experiment. And there's nothing worse. If you're not committed to doing it and really seeing if it'll work, if you're not open-minded enough and willing to do that, then don't even bother, because you're going to self-sabotage. Does that sound like something that happens in this industry and all industries?
Yeah. Yes, you can't have a preconceived notion going in.
Because you're going to rig the results.
Let's see what happens.
You're going to rig the trial to to attain the outcome you were already convinced would
If
happen.
you want to really get with it, do the trial like in front of your house. Where you have to look at it, or in front of your dad's house.
In front of your dad's
Where you have to look at it every day. Because
one time I planted 30,000 population beans in front of my dad's house, and he could see it out the front door. That might be the biggest mistake. I might have to add to the list.
That's where I was going with that.
I like that you're getting Gene kind of wound up.
Oh,
it's like, did the planter quit?
See, that would work for me. I don't know.
how long are you going to leave those like that? Well, I'm going to leave them all summer. Oh,
sometimes I do things just to get a reaction. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. All right, so I said where I think farmer experimentation should go, that they should be committed. If you're not going to commit, if you're going to self-sabotage and then convince yourself, I told you this wouldn't work, then why bother? Then you're just then.
I mean, you got to be committed. If you're not going to be committed, just don't do it. I mean, do it at close to the shop. Work your way away from the shop with all your trial work.
Because keep track of the data.
Keep track of the data.
Otherwise, you're not learning anything.
Right. Keep track of the data. You know, what does Mike Tyson say?
You cover a lot of areas. You cover a lot of farm ground. You see a lot of people. You see that. I'm guessing that there's a lot less experimentation than you think there should be, and the self-sabotaging. You've probably seen it. I told you this wouldn't work.
That's a reactive answer any farmer is going to give, because they like what they've always done, and they don't think there's a better way.
Work. It's like, I told you your stuff wouldn't work here. Your stuff wouldn't work here.
Throw it back on you.
My easiest thing is just flip the pump off on the planter and then see if it works. Like, rather than trying to say, will calcium work or will boron work? Let's just prove first that your fertilizer is doing something.
My favorite experiment that you did was going to no applied nitrogen, because we both believe, you and I, that the future is going to be much more scrutinized, and the future means now, on nitrogen application. And you said, I'm not going to just cut back a few percent. I'm going to cut back by like 0 to 100% to 50%, whatever. That was, I think, your favorite experiment that I've seen you do since I've known.
Well, thank you. But if you don't go too far, you haven't really learned. You got to find the limit, and 0 was too far.
Yeah.
But we went from 0 to 60, and 60 wasn't too far. So really, we should go to 30, pounds of anhydrous to see where it's at. Zero is too far, but we still haven't really found the limit.
What about the person says, hey, you know what? It's easy to talk about this experimentation. You guys got this XtremeAg, but you know what? I'm out here. If I've got to make money on every acre. Your response to that?
Remember what Kip Kohler told us?
That's what Kip said. Kip said, if you can't test on 10 acres, you broke already and you don't know it.
There you go.
That's good stuff.
That was you, Kip.
Congratulations, Kip. All right, Stephanie, anything else you got on this farmer experimentation? Because I want to come up to your farm. I've not been there, and I want to come out. And if you don't have major amounts of breathtaking experimentation going on, I'm going to leave disappointed.
You'll be disappointed.
We'll have it. We just ain't going to talk about it right at the table.
And we ain't going to talk to your husband and say, Stephanie says that you're afraid to take a risk. That's what I'm going to say.
Go for it. Maybe that will change his mind.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's worked with all the other XtremeAg guys. I haven't been able to influence him yet.
No, but I think he is. I think he's looking to, you have to change something if you want to get higher yields and better crop production. And so he recognizes it, but it's scary to step out and spend those extra dollars, especially when you spend, hundreds of dollars on soybeans and they yield no higher than where you didn't put anything out.
You can't experiment on 10 acres.
Well, I mean, it's just tough, it's according to where you want to be, as a farmer, where you want to be. I mean, there's a lot of great farmers out there that's doing fine and is content where they was. Right. And then there's a lot of farmers that's just coming up and like, I want to know why. Like me, that's the way I'm built. I want to know why something works like it does. Like, I want to know why that cup's round. Like, I want to know why this table's like, I want to know why. And so when you fit into that mold, like, you got to get outside the box. As a little dab, you ain't gonna get anywhere. Like, you're just spinning your wheel.
I'm not being mean, but there's a lot of farmers that are saying that they won't do it because of the money, and it's really because of the pride, that they don't want to have something that all of a sudden the neighbors judge. I really think there's as much of that. I think that's as big of a reason as the financials.
Well, it's the failure. Humans, individuals, are just scared of failure.
Yeah. Nobody wants to.
You can't be scared of failure. You need to embrace it, because you fail every day. Like, you're failing something every day.
Oh. If you want to hang around people who are not afraid to fail, you're at the right place, because you're at the Granary. And you know what we like to do? We like to push the envelope a little bit here at XtremeAg. We've got guys that, like Chad Henderson, who is one of the Sendit twins, along with his Sendit twin, Temple Rhodes. We also got Kelly Garrett, who's sitting right here, and he's doing all kinds of experimentation, and we're happy to have him. We're very happy to have Stephanie Zelinko, Michigan farmer and AgroLiquid agronomist, here at the table. AgroLiquid is one of our business partners and a sponsor of this show. So you want to learn more about their products, fertility products that can help you attain what you want on your farming experimentations or on your farming general practices, standard practices that is, you know what? AgroLiquid can help you. Fertility, being put out there at the right amount, at the right time versus blanketed out there, as Chad talked about, because this idea that you're going to fling out a bunch of dry fertilizer and all of a sudden it's going to build up the soil bank, it just ain't so. And you can hear him talk about more of that in some of our Cutting the Curve podcasts. Until next time, check out agroliquid.com. Thanks for being here. We want you to come back. Always fun talk right here at the Granary. Cheers. All right, so I got to tell you, I've not actually ever met your husband. I'm not really going to come up there and insult him. But if you want me to,